Mhm. So good morning, everyone. Welcome to Satsang. Let's make some silence first. What is the purpose of life? Do I feel the calling in my heart? Do I have that sacred blessing? Should I buy down for fear, for attachment to any other activities beyond freedom? The gift of life, the gift of calling should be honored. That is the highest Dharma. Nothing else matters. So like I said in the beginning, this quest for truth, for those who have the calling, it is the highest Dharma. It is that which makes life worthwhile. These days, with so much technology, the spiritual world, more or less, was brought more into light. It's more accessible for those who are interested to see what goes on in these spiritual places. And what has been revealed, well, is not that much of, how do you say that? I don't find the word. So it is, the world is missing, but it is very difficult to take spirituality seriously these days. It seems more of a child's play, or adults living in wonderland, than it is about spirituality. And technology allowed this to be more visible. But where are these examples? These strong souls that used to we're still missing. To inspire, there it comes. Where are those strong souls that used to inspire seekers? Those strong seekers, committed, completely dedicated. They are not visible, more or less. Surely there are some there, but it has reduced a lot. And even those who can see that things are more like a circus than spirituality, they tend to be just looking from the outside and not making a difference by themselves. And the way to make a difference, it is to be on a real quest. Internet problems. So it all comes back to the basics. Spirituality has begun to be seen as something therapeutical, something which is there to heal your wounds, your soul wounds, whatever the language is, because I don't have no idea what that means. Instead of being the vehicle of transcendence, of transcending these limitations, apparent limitations, to your real identity. And individually, it is always the same because, well, it's easier to pretend, for sure. And for everybody, this is true at some level. A level where you still believe that it is the outside world, more or less, that will give you the value, that will give you the realization, that recognition is realization, that beloved is the highest goal, When you believe these things, then pretending is more easy. Life continues to be empty. Doesn't matter how many retreats you go and do massages and all these things. And it doesn't matter how much you smile and embrace others. Life continues empty. In that moment it may be fine, but no realization. Of course. No greatness. Of course. At the end of the day, you're all by yourself in the same. And doesn't matter how much noise you can make, silence will always be there and prevails, bringing that which is petty, empty, to light, and with it the burden of individual existence, the emptiness of it all. The more you run, the more you're thirsty. The more you drink that which is not water, the more thirsty you become. You dehydrate without even noticing it. As you're distracted, when silence comes, then it is overwhelming. So this collective movement is something that can be observed, but spirituality was never about collectiveness. It is about you, it's always about you. If life is a blessing, if the calling, the divine calling is a blessing, so what can be the destiny of the one who turns his back on two blessings? And if you put all of those individuals together, then you have a group, a movement. But it's all about individuals. Of course, worldly distractions have become overwhelming, too much. And it is so because the potential is greater. So the opposition has to increase. But all those wrong beliefs, they can only subside if not questioned. And each and one of you has the strength to question everything. And if it doesn't have the strength, if it appears not having that strength, help is there if you ask it. Those who are beginners in the spiritual quest, they usually tend to make the same questions. Do I have to leave my family? Do I have to leave my life? These are their fears. And why is that? Well, because as they start to get close to something alive, something real, as they are getting pulled by something real, the calling starts appearing. Immediately, their attachments, their obstacles become visible. Fears, the guardians of delusion, start rising. And this rising reveals the walls of your prison cell or the prison block. So they all do these questions. Because most of the times, yes, you have, not because it is essential at a philosophical level, not that there isn't a philosophy that says otherwise. Oh, there are tons of philosophies, and you choose the one that suits best your fears, not to feel them. It should be the other way around, because that is the point. But for beginners, in that moment, it becomes clear, so they don't move forward. They stay put. And this is actually even more honest than what is being made these days, because modern seekers have figured it out, how to deal with this. They just keep everything and study some philosophies and learn some new languages, new behaviors, new ways of dressing themselves. And they're spiritual. And they don't have to go through the fears, of course not. But understand, it doesn't matter how much you delay it, because it serves no one else's interest for you to walk the path, but your own. And those messages that come to you in different ways to awaken you towards the quest, they are not there because you're special. There's this idea. And it's interesting because it appears to be so. For so long, messages from every place are coming to seekers at different levels for them to work, to walk the path. And this brings an idea, even at the subtle level, I must be special. Then seekers behave special-like. But they don't understand. You don't understand that when you are crying, when you are in deep pain, when you are suffering intensely, in agony, you remember God. You remember angels, saints, deities. You remember everyone that you tend to forget when everything is good. And they are listening. They are listening for your cries. They listen to them. So these messages of courage, to uplift you, they are to avoid these cries, these deep sufferings. It is. These warnings, they are the compassion that is being given to you before you need it. This is the thing, because it is before you need it. And it's always like this, more or less. For the majority, of course, there's always those who are different. Something comes, blessing, compassion comes. Before it is needed, it is treated like, well, I don't need it. If it was just one time, okay, but it goes on again and again and again and again and again and again. So these warnings, it is like the mother that tells their children, don't do this that way, do it this way. Before you get hurt. What's the point of telling after? So these warnings, these callings, these inspirations, they are the compassion which is being brought to you from those who then has to listen. When you cry for compassion, when you cry for help, you're being heard. But then what can it be done? And why didn't you listen before? Because everything was fine? Because you think you have something? Well, let me tell you one thing, you have nothing. It doesn't matter how solid your life appears to be, you have nothing. It can disappear overnight, and it can reappear overnight also. You have nothing to lose because you have nothing, and you have nothing to gain. But you have everything to gain from a different level. But if you gain or not, that's irrelevant for those who are calling you, giving you incentive. It is to avoid those cries for desperation. Because when they come, and they do come, they have to be lived. They cannot be avoided. They can now, before. But then, if you rejected the wisdom path, when winter begins, you will have to go through the 3 months. Well, if it is 3 months, wherever you're listening to this, you will have to go through it. And you will cry, and you will beg, and you will do whatever is needed, but you'll have to go through it. Why didn't you listen before, previously? Because that was the point of those callings. Not because you were special, but because it is known that if you use your life force into something which is useless, pointless, suffering will come intensely. This is why everything is there, calling you. You feel like the king of the mountain sometimes. You may not be aware of this, but these incentives, they give this psychological stance on you. This is why seekers have lost their ability, their humbleness. They don't even perceive it. Some do, but majority doesn't. But it is there, all things are there to avoid that deep pain, deep sorrow. Because when it comes, there's nothing that can stop it. Já resolveste o som? Okay, so let's go answering some questions. I will answer your question now. You see, if you want to send questions whenever you are, we have realized that the information in the pages and whatever was not really clear, and it's not easy to make it clear. But you can send your questions through a number, a WhatsApp number that appears in the banners of the pages and on the description of the videos now. It wasn't there. So whenever you have questions, you can send them. I will answer them as soon as possible. And through WhatsApp, it is good because we can communicate more directly. If you're not understanding, you can send even an audio, you can send. I will listen here. And it is private. This is one of the best things about it, because those who are watching, they have no idea, no clue of who is asking the question. So the questions become more pure. They can be more profound also. Hello, Sriman. I just understood that all external solicitations only reinforce the illusory self. Well, we are on the observing the obvious. I have constant questions since your answers. I really have the feeling of having passed a new stage. I live in constant disturbance of questioning. Intuitively, I know the answers. All this shakes me. I even feel fear. Is this normal? Yes, I was talking about this in the beginning, about beginners. And what is interesting is that those who are considered more or less as not so beginners, what is the other word for the opposite of beginner? Well, not a professional, of course, but those who are in the long run in this, that advanced, people look as advanced. They are actually beginners because, well, in their understanding, they are not so beginners. But their understanding and their reality, they are completely different. Completely different. So you may have studied a lot and know a lot and understand a lot and be having a lot of wisdom, whatever that means. But it is all empty because the steps were not given. So as you face the moment to give real steps, you will have the same feelings, the same experiences as a beginner that knows nothing about nothing. Knowledge can help, but mostly disturbs also, because it doesn't change anything. So the more your understanding grows without actual experience, actual freedom, the more difficult it is to create those circumstances that break your world. And they are fundamental. So, if you're seeing that all these external solicitations, these external happenings, demands, are there just to reinforce the illusion, of course everything will shake, because these are the pillars of your illusion, of your identity base. These are the pillars, because by seeing that, it is crystal clear that your investments, they are not about happiness, but about supporting, maintaining illusion. And how can this be bearable? Well, at the intellectual level, it's easy, more or less. But like I said, it has very little to do with intellect. Your world, your illusion, your identity is based on those investments. They are the cycle that feeds itself. And when you have the clear vision that is there only to reinforce illusion, your world starts to crumble. Why do people fight depression? Because there's no more interest in life. No more interest, nothing, empty. This is death, like when you're still alive, apparently. So, of course, if you start to see the pointlessness of everything, like I said previously in the beginning, the guardians of illusion will rise, the fears. And they will reach an intensity, the needed intensity to send you back to where you were. What does this mean? That vision can only be possible if a certain level of vibration has been broken. If you have risen to a certain level of vibration. Mathematically, fear comes and engrosses you, eventually pulling you back to a level that you cannot see it already. It is justified again, and it makes sense. Oof, everything is preserved. So this is what fear is there doing. And this is what happens when things begin to be serious. So those fears will arise, and you will have to overcome them. And to overcome them, it means to deepen your practice, to intensify it even more, to establish yourself into that new vibration, or even to go above it. And going through fears means not doing anything to change the circumstance. Facing those fears means to be exposed to them without interfering in the circumstances, without trying to make them go away. This is the only way you can overcome their illusory power. No other way. If you use aggression towards a fear, yes, you may have grown, but it has grown with you. It may have disappeared, but it's still there, more powerful than you, because you feed your fears each time you battle them. Because if you're battling something, so that something must be real. And this is the food for the fears, is when you consider them and treat them as real, and you respond to them as real. Fear comes and you run away, or you attack, whatever. This is how you feed them. And you grow, you have become stronger, but also your opponent has become stronger and still stronger than you, because you still feel the need to battle it or to run from it. And yes, I intuitively know the answers. Some you know, others you think you know, but it will be enough for this stage. And it all shakes, yes, of course, if it is normal, yes, of course, and it is showing you a path. So the natural, what you call natural, is to run from fears, and this is what people tend to do all the time. Whenever there's disturbance, conflict, whatever, they want to establish peace, to resolve that conflict. They don't understand that real peace comes after that. It's not in the absence of those conflicts. That's no peace. It is after, beyond those conflicts. Because those conflicts, they are about the structures of delusion. If you avoid that conflict, those structures remain intact. No peace. So it is pointing away. And for sure, at the same time, you are seeing the investments that are arising, the urgency to do certain things, to get out from that. So it's like you're having a choice. A choice. Instantly, everything pushes you towards one side. This is the illusion-bound path. The fears are pushing you away. This is what you feel it's natural. But the path to freedom is going through the fears. So that is the fear, that is my direction. As long as there's no guidance, fears are the first master. So if you're fearing to be alone, then be alone. If you're fearing to lose everything, then give everything away. Go through your fears. That is the path towards freedom. But of course, it needs an amount of strength. Not much, just needs an amount of thirst for freedom, knowing what is right. But as long as you don't go through the fears, you are still in prison. I will answer your question now. Hello, Sriman. If you don't mind, I had a question. I took some distance from my best friends as it resulted in chatter, inevitable distractions, and attachment. However, we have children of the same age, and I still see them regularly because the children are friends. It's all part of the dream, but the attachment to my children means that I don't want to deprive them of their friends. I am suddenly constrained by moments of distractions and discussions that I would like to avoid. How can we best do to remain firmly established in the search? Well, if these things are not avoidable in those circumstances, if you feel that there's no way to avoid it, then it can be worked in another way. It's not an easy way, but it's still a way, because whatever circumstances are there, there's still always a work which is possible to do. So those conversations, all things that come from those gatherings, they are not positive, but they only happen because you still have the interest. Because if you didn't have the interest, it wouldn't be a conversation. You wouldn't disturb the environment, but it wouldn't be a conversation, because people would ask, oh, this and this and this, and say, yeah, well, you won't continue the conversation. Eventually it would die, or it would be centered around those who would have this interest, and you could use the time to continue to abstract instead of participating. So sometimes it is when you cannot change the circumstance. Well, okay, just for the sake of this example, then you can use that obstacle in a way to work things at the source. Usually abstraction is the best, but eventually there will have to be exposition. You'll have to be exposed to those obstacles again to see if things are clear or not, if they are solved or not. And one of the reasons that I'm saying this like in a hesitating way, it's because most of those who listen to these things, they use this kind of psychology to justify being in the middle of those things. It is for a higher purpose, of course, but usually it isn't. It is just for attachment's sake. But you see, one attachment leads to the other and the other. So you want to avoid it because you know it's not good for you, but you have your children. And because of this, well, you cannot avoid it. Well, sometimes we could say a lot of things about this. For example, there's many kids that go and play with their friends, and that doesn't mean that adults have to be together. It doesn't really. So, well, but in the end, understand, you're having a small child at this moment, and, well, you cannot go around that, supposedly. But that will change. And I've seen this many, many, many times. Adults saying, well, I have my children, I cannot do it now. I'll do it later because now I cannot go around this. But children grow, they become adults, they go on with their lives, some of them. But the ones that were using the children as an excuse, they continue the same. They don't change because they don't do finally the work because children have gone. Because it was never about children. It's not about spirituality. It's about everything. It's about desire. What is really more important to you? This is what makes the difference. And you see, at all levels of worldly life, people are with their friends and family and kids and all, and they leave them if something is more important in the horizon. Or they make it work in those circumstances, but still they don't let go of what's more important. And every situation has a solution to make it work. But that depends on what is the most important thing. Because if the most important thing is to be quiet, to be silent, to deepen your practices, it doesn't matter which circumstance is there, it will work. If that is, I repeat again, if that is the most suitable circumstance for you, because there's a design, and your spiritual path has to go through certain things different from anyone else. And entering your quest for freedom, it means entering the molds of your path. You cannot go around them. So some have to stay with their family, some have to leave them. Sometimes it is about what you want more, what you're more attached to, you have to let go. Other times about what you fear most, you have to endure. Other times it's just about destiny, whatever that means. But one thing is for sure, the better you use the present circumstances, the more you open up your path. Sometimes it is a scary path, but if it is your path, it takes you there, whatever that means. And that's what matters. Okay, so next satsang will be Saturday, 9 o'clock in the morning, Brazilian time, UTC -3. If you have any questions, whenever you have it, you can send through that number that appears somewhere or in many places in the website, Facebook, YouTube, in the banners. The number will appear in the banners or in the description of the videos. But sometimes you have to look a little bit because, well, few are handling this and they don't have time for everything because their practice is more important, whatever that means. So until then, make the best use of your time, make it count. Make it count. Gosh.